Today's film features a man telling his story. I'm caught between life and death. Either I die with a pure soul, or I sell my soul and die in humiliation, and then I'll be burned. At first I'll scream, then I'll cry, and finally, after being roasted in the sun for 300 days, I'll just sit and watch. For example, I see the sand moving on its own, and I see how this creature studies me, but I'm not afraid, and I don't have the energy to deal with what's happening. I just want to get out once and understand what all this is about. I used to be the king, but now I'm in exile. I saw everything as it passed by me, merchants and thieves, people who wouldn't have dared even look at me, but who would never have made me happy. But, thankfully, they would stop and vent their anger, then march on towards the city I once ruled, carrying out my traitorous brother's orders. If he had wanted to kill me, he would have done it with a sword. That would have been a gift from him, truly. But no, he left me alive here because he knows that memories hurt more than chains. And even when I close my eyes, I can hear them. But it's not me screaming, it's my wife and children. Unfortunately, he decided against a quick end, but did something far worse. He covered the throne with evidence of the massacre he committed, forced me to sit upon it, and wanted me to count the burden of death on my back before he took me to hell. If I'm still here after 300 days, it's not because I'm lucky, but because he wants to humiliate me and see me with his own eyes. In short, he will never let me die. Every day at noon, he sends one of the guards with a plate containing very little food.
I know that if I die, the pleasure I feel will end. But yesterday the routine changed. The guard didn't come to pour dirty water on me like usual. He came with his team, the worst warriors in the kingdom, and my brother didn't get off his horse. He was looking at me with half his face covered in silk, treating me from a distance as if I were a sick person he'd infect. Then suddenly he asked me, "Are you still breathing?" But his voice held no mercy. He wasn't asking to check on me. He was mocking me. I tried to spit at him, but my mouth was so dry only dust came out. He came closer so I could see the hatred in his eyes and said, "Father favored you over me. He made you everything and put you on the throne. Remember? The throne, the power, the glory. As for me, you treated me like a stray dog." Then he stops and points towards the desert, saying, "Look where your glory has reached now. I have the kingdom, and you have nothing but dust." He signals to his guards to leave, but then he stops, turns around, looks one last time and smiles, a smile that freezes the blood. He says to me, "Yes, that's right. I had a purpose with your eldest daughter." Of course, the moment I hear this, my heart stops. I thought he had killed her along with the others, but he calmly tells me, "We didn't kill her, actually. She's very valuable and we couldn't afford to lose her." He continues, "She cooks and serves me and my men wine until she collapses from exhaustion. This way she'll learn that in my world she's just a servant. But maybe I'll bring her to you one day so you can see her father one last time." And at night, when the sun sets, something inside me breaks forever, and I look up at the sky, but I can't scream.
Look, there's no hope left. They're the ones who allowed this, who allowed my daughter to suffer. But I can't bear it anymore, so I scream. I scream so loudly with all my anguish, offering my life to anything that can give me the strength to kill them all. The ground responds. The wind suddenly stops, and my legs feel the change. Suddenly, the sand shifts, and something heavy is sliding across it. I freeze, feeling paralyzed. Whoever is with me isn't human. It's something studying me, taking its time, calculating the weight of the old gaze fixed on my back, measuring my stature and flesh. Then a black shadow emerges from the sand, its fins digging into my legs like claws. My body reacts before I can react, and then my whole body burns. Something is coursing through my veins. The poison takes 3 minutes to reach my heart. She tells me this in a very harsh voice, and I see the sand, and it's coming out of her mouth. This is the time. It's supposed to decide what the rest of your life will look like. And when my last breath comes out, you'll either be with me, or you'll be nothing but a corpse. So I ask her, why? The words come out of my mouth with difficulty amidst the pain I feel. I ask her, why now? Where are my guards? She laughs and says, guards? Oh, the kindness of humans. Don't be naive. There are no guards here. There's only one thing in front of you right now that can save you. Then she gets closer and says, this universe would collapse if there were any guards at all. Look closely. And she points to a bee in the sky and says, look at the stars and look at death. This creation is dazzling and perfect, a flawless mechanism. So I scream, telling her, you must be a sadist. And at that moment, I feel like
Blood still tastes like copper. Those who follow you are surely enjoying themselves. They watch the evil reign and shape the world to their liking. So she replies, you see brutality and cruelty because you look through human eyes, but reality isn't what you think. What you call pain is actually called balance. She gets closer until her breath pierces my ears and says, your guards were just a filter. They wanted you to be pure and remain bound to this pillar to achieve balance. Then her face changes, and the pupils in her eyes also change shape and widen, covering the faint light that was there. Suddenly, darkness appears on her face, and she says, but I want you as you are, so you can win. You were just a ruler and a pure soul, and that's why I couldn't touch you. Your faith was your shield, but after you collapsed today, you were able to open the door at last. Time is passing, Uncle Ruler. You and the sand are running, and your brother no longer plays by human rules. My chest calms down a little, and she continues, telling me he's already made his pact. This pact wasn't with one woman like it was with this nameless one. Then she makes the sand sink even lower, and there are only seconds left. She says, if you die here, as a man of value, you'll remain a servant to the monsters forever. At that moment, my body is no longer under my control, and my eyes begin to close. I thought I was going to die, and he would laugh and rejoice when he saw my body and hurt my daughter even more. This thought kills me more than the poison. So I move forward, grab the woman's hand, and stop the sand before it falls. I say to her, but if
my soul will guarantee that I can kill you. And I look into her eyes and say, I don't want any of that nonsense. In short, I don't care if I live or not. I just want to save my daughter and take revenge on my brother. Do you have that power, or are you useless like my guards? She smiles, spits out her hands, and saves the last few grains of sand, saying, my strength won't just kill him, it'll make him wish for death. Above dawn, the guard arrives to continue his routine and place the daily stale water for breakfast. But when he reaches the pillar, the water suddenly pours out, leaving a heavy silence. He looks around and runs as if the devil himself is chasing him. In the next scene, in the square, my brother is busy, sitting in his chair eating jujubes. Below him, his men are cleaning the town of traders, and he's watching, thoroughly enjoying the spectacle. Then the guard arrives, his face pale, as if his soul has left his body. He kneels, trembling, and speaks in a low voice, sweat dripping down his forehead. He tells him, your brother has disappeared, and the pillar is empty. The smile on my brother's face vanishes. He doesn't ask any questions, but he is terrified. He looks around and then strikes the guard with the sword. He's with him, killing him, and telling his men to get the horse ready. When he reaches the post, he looks at the broken chain on the ground and finds it's not cut, but rather has exploded. He sits on the ground, trembling, his hands covered in dust. He brings the dust close to his hand, smells it, and finds its scent mixed with the smell of snakes. He looks ahead, and fear is evident in his eyes for the first time. He understands exactly what happened. Any man can break a lock, but no man can break metal chains with his bare hands. But he understands that this isn't an escape attempt, and all this while
He looks around me and searches for answers, but the desert around me is completely silent. The truth is that reality did not end with an event. It ended with a very terrible silence. I am asleep, taking a deep breath, expecting to feel sulfur, heat, and mold, but the air is cold and tastes sweet. When I open my eyes, I prepare to face the demons, but what I see makes me feel more paralyzed than poison. Around me is light, not the fire of hell, but a pure blue light that illuminates. I do not see any dirty rocks, but all I see is white crystal, and the waterfalls are water and glow like stars. At that moment, I feel like I am in the paradise I used to dream of if I were a good person. But, by the way, I am not good. I just sold my soul now. So I touch my chest, and my heart is beating, and the toothache has disappeared from my body. Then I look at her and find her in front of me, and she is touching me, and she looks beautiful. Yes, but she is standing at the same time under the light. So I ask her, "What is this? Are you trying to kill me or what?" Of course, this is the ultimate hallucination. She laughs loudly, the sound echoing through the place, and says, "Oh, you poor thing. This is the truth hidden beneath the mirage-filled desert." She moves closer and points to the edge of the picture, saying, "This is my home. We passed the White Castle, but this place isn't peaceful. It's more like a shack." Suddenly, I see hundreds of women transformed into snakes, all standing up. I feel their eyes fixed on the back of my neck, and some of them get so close I can feel their hunger. I ask her, "Are these your army, or are they the ones who will execute me?" They all stare at me as if I'm the main dish they'll have for lunch today. She replies, "To them, you're just a tender piece of meat," and pushes one of them to my side.
Why did you release the pages? You couldn't have sent any one of them. Why did you risk your life for someone like me, bound in chains? She replies, "Because the servant seeks a leader, but the queen seeks a king. If either of them had found you, they would have devoured you or enslaved you. But I need a challenge like myself, someone with immense hatred who can withstand my poison without dying. I'm not looking for submission, you defeated king. I'm looking for an ally." Then she goes to your wall and pulls out something wrapped in black silk, offering it to me. I say in a low voice, "You want an ally for a coming war." I feel cold, but not the cold of the wind. I feel empty inside. She replies, "I removed your humanity to give you strength instead, and you will need this strength. Your brother made a pact with one whose name we cannot utter." I ask, "Who is this one whose name we cannot utter? Is it the devil you are sealing away?" But she answers, "No, it's something greater, a void that eats away. The light is there, and you remove the pin from this thing, and it turns out to be a black dagger made of crystal. It reflects the light around it. The iron of humans would break against their skin, but this one won't. You give it to him and tell him to take it, but not to use it against the soldiers. Keep it until you kill the enemy with it and plunge it into his heart." So I take the dagger and touch it, and my hands become firmer than before. Then I lick it, and before me is a black void, and it tells me, "Now you are far away." Armed, he knew the truth, and the time had come to awaken his army. Meanwhile, my brother, the traitor, didn't return to the palace. Instead, he moved towards his leader, taking his army and marching towards the forbidden lands. These lands are filled with black rocks where the sun never rises. He alone has permission to enter. His team is forbidden. He enters the cave without looking back, and darkness descends upon his men, wiping them out one by one. Inside, there's no air, only a thick fog, whose stench is like a freshly opened grave. He kneels on the black ice beneath him and says, "You killed me, Rain. No one can touch it." For the first time, his voice trembles as he continues, "The pillar is empty. What exactly took it?" Smoke spreads everywhere, but he stands before it, a massive, terrifying figure with no face, only horns, breathing a breath that freezes the blood. Then he speaks in a voice like a bone about to break, telling them he didn't take it. No, it went down below, and the cave is shaking. He says, "Your brother is right. The queen of the serpents is down there,
but that cursed priest certainly didn't come to appear on the surface to negotiate with him. He continues, saying, "She offered him the hut and the legendary stone beneath the echo, and thousands of warriors that don't bleed him or eat him. Nothing stops him with a sledgehammer, and if they attack you, your kingdom will turn to dust before dawn." In the next scene, my brother is crawling on the frozen ground, feeling hopeless, and he's shouting, "My men can't kill the stone." He completely loses his mind and says, "Help me, I've given you everything. Just give me one thing I can use to stop them." The imagination expands, and the cave becomes tedious.
He's so cold, no one can stand him. He says, "I'll open my cauldron and unleash the power of the void and blind monsters that prick at the fear. They'll make my army treat you like a groom in Egypt, surrounded by children." Then the officers gather around his brother and completely hide him. He tells him, "But this savage talk won't guarantee you victory. Come any closer, I have final orders for you. Something that will ensure that even if you win the battle, you'll lose the war." All this while, I'm still in the cave of the Serpent Queen. Suddenly, I leap into the blue void in front of me. But as soon as I pass the fog, the cold disappears for a moment, and I descend into a world that is all dry and all dead. The air is incredibly heavy, and its smell is like the dust that has risen from dead graves. I stand watching them, and then I realize I'm not alone. I'm surrounded by ancient stone corpses and endless rows of giants who have been waiting for centuries to receive orders to kill. So I walk to the end, and there I find the general, who is actually 3. A meter of stones stands atop a throne of rocks, and he holds a sword in his hands, his gaze full of mystery. I remember her warning when she told me his mother wouldn't listen, and if my hatred wasn't enough, his mother would kill me. So I don't hesitate. I raise my hand covered in dried blood and place it on his chest. But the pain I feel then is unbearable. I feel the weight of thousands of forgotten wars trying to penetrate my mind, trying to influence me. But I don't show any fear. I just show them the memories, the scene of my brother laughing secretly, the image of Sahara offering coal and wine to his pigs, and the throne made of the hero's skin.
Evil strikes, and suddenly I find the stone warm beneath my hand. This means the general hasn't rejected me. On the contrary, he has fed on my anger. The stone begins to crack, breaking the silence. The giant general immediately rises, kneeling on the ground before me, bowing his head and offering his support. I feel the heavy burden rising onto my arm, the stone beginning to cover my body, concealing my diminished strength. It wraps around my chest, forming a stone shield. Now I wear the warrior's armor. I look at my army and see them waiting for my signal. I tell them, "Rise, we have a kingdom to burn." At that moment, their eyes turn yellow and flicker in the darkness. In the next scene, I emerge from the darkness and find the Queen of Serpents standing there, waiting for me. She doesn't say anything when she sees my new skin, but smiles gently. Then she says, "The one who fell down was a broken man, but the one who has come out now is a warrior." "Brave," I tell her, "I'm not a warrior. I'm a killer going to deliver justice." When I turn to leave, she stops me and places her cold hands on my stone chest. Her smile vanishes, and she says, "Don't be so confident. Your brother is like a wet blanket. He'll use tricks and schemes against you and will betray those you love." I reply, "If Hara touches me, I'll bring the whole world down on me." She retorts, "That's the danger you need to fear. Remember your shield well. If you let your heart soften, your stone will shatter, and the ground will tremble before the city walls." My brother is standing waiting from afar. I no longer have the appetite to eat jujubes. He grinds his teeth so hard that his tongue starts to bleed. He knows exactly what he has stepped into, and a 1,000-meter-high sand dune appears.
It moves towards the city at a speed of 1,000 meters, obscuring the sunlight and turning morning into night. We don't move alone. The storm is like our world, and then the army begins to emerge from the smoke, thousands strong and countless, all moving across the desert. The soldiers and the dust storms scorch the sky. Then I emerge from behind this cloud of dust,
But I am not an exiled king. I am the commander of this army that will begin the end of the world. In front of the images, there is a herd of monsters standing and sulking. The moment I see them, I immediately understand that they are monsters whose name cannot be mentioned. These monsters are like plagues and acid, creatures with shields and tentacles flying in the air. A poison that can melt iron drips from their mouths, and they are consumed by hunger. Then the battle begins, and it's even more brutal because it's a killing field. These monsters can't withstand the stones, and my warriors move relentlessly, destroying the monsters and crushing their bones underfoot. My brother's army is reduced to a carpet of corpses in seconds, and he watches from above, paralyzed and unable to act out of fear. When the last monster falls, the 10-meter-tall general moves forward, strikes the walls, and destroys them. The entire city is defeated by the blow. So I tell him, "Open the gates, brother, and give me my daughter, so I can have mercy on you." And indeed, the gates open. My brother is standing on the battlefield, and he has no weapons. He throws his sword, and then we see Sihara standing next to him, trembling. Of course, as soon as she sees me, she runs to me and hugs me. I look at my brother, and I know he thinks he has won, so I tell him, "You have done your part, and now I will do mine. Grab him and take him to the dungeon."
But then my brother pulls out a small dagger and tells me to stay put. "You don't seem to understand the nature of our relationship. You can't imprison me. You can't even touch me." Then he cuts his wrists in a certain way. At that moment, Sahara screams in my arm and grabs hers. I pull her away and see the wound on her hand, and it's bleeding. I ask him, "What did you do to my daughter?" At that moment, the tent responds, saying things we can't name, linking our lives. If I'm imprisoned, she'll tremble. If the chains tighten around me, her skin will be cut. If the 60 years rot in the darkness, she'll never know joy in her life. Then he comes closer, laughing, and says, "No, brother, I won't be locked in this cell. Time will tell. I'm leaving, and she'll come with me." He grabs Sahara's arm and says, "Make your monsters back down. If I see even one stone." She's the one who will pay the price if she moves. If she tries to follow me, the damage will be permanent. If she tries any heroic act, my end will affect her, and it will be her end too. So I pound the ground, feeling helpless, and I yell at the soldiers, standing to the side, making a passage for my traitorous brother, so he can slip through the army. I have to see him and take her away, walking with her. I have to watch them as they walk among the warriors, blood protecting them. Sahara looks at me one last time, before she disappears into the desert, her eyes pleading with me, not to do anything, and to let her walk. Then the gate closes behind them, and I close one in the city I just conquered, which to me is just an empty city, with a throne that has no use. There are only the dregs of my traitorous brother's guards, and of course, I have no mercy left. I send my men to kill them. At that moment, the Queen of the Serpents emerges.
She appeared to me from among the city's inhabitants and said, "I told you, Your Majesty, that he would exploit those you love, and I would bring you to your knees without him even drawing his sword." I replied, "Be quiet for a moment," and leaned towards her, dagger in hand, saying, "Tell me how to break it. Tell me how to break the bond between them without killing her." The Queen of Serpents approached and looked to the left, towards the place they had fled to, and said, "Unfortunately, we cannot do this here. The magic they used is ancient magic, and as long as your brother has the protective amulet, it will be his shield." Then she turned to me, her eyes filled with new hope, and said, "If you want to save her, we need to go to the place where this pact was made. We need to go to the Forbidden Lands. We are not going to conquer a kingdom, Your Majesty. We are going to kill this dark entity." I replied, "I don't care. Let him live. Let him rule the dark side. I don't care about anything else. All that matters to me is my daughter. She's the only love I have left in this dark world, and no hell can ever hide her from me, no matter what." And that's the end of your
battle is truly over, but my war is just about to begin. Watch the giants as they devour all my brother's followers like insects on the ground. The whole situation was terrifying. I didn't have time to celebrate this great wait. I was trying to protect my daughter who was traveling north. I was afraid of wasting any moment away from her. Strangely, the giants are made of stone because they can smell the treachery in their blood. Among these innocent people is a young man named Van who always dreamed of achieving glory and becoming a great man in the future. Unfortunately, all his dreams are shattered because he's trapped in my brother's clutches. Strangely, my brother refuses to kill him and instead tortures him constantly, toying with him as if he were a game, even enjoying his suffering. At the same time, Van is grieving for all his fallen comrades, and what affects him most is his inability to. He seeks revenge for their deaths, but he doesn't know how to handle the situation he's in alone.
He was forced to endure humiliation and degradation to the point of being thrown to the ground in front of the king, begging him to beg for mercy. This was because he wanted to die like his comrades. Finally, I managed to find him and took him to a safe place. I started talking to him calmly and told him that I needed him in my war, that this was not the time to die or surrender, and that he couldn't be a coward in a moment like this. I began to explain that I was searching for Sihara and that he had to help me with something like this. I was pleased with him and encouraged by him, since he was the only one who could save himself from the massacre that had occurred and had remained standing until now. I needed him to see the light in his eyes again. I pointed to the throne and told him that this seat couldn't remain empty for long, that the kingdom needed people like him, and that very soon I myself would not be here. Therefore, I had to leave someone trustworthy to look after the kingdom in my absence. I asked him to oversee the city, and of course he was very surprised as to why I had chosen someone like him. Fear was evident on his face as he kept looking at the giants around him, certain they would finish him off at the first exit from here. It was impossible for him to back down after what he had seen and heard. I told him that the decision he had just made was not that of a broken youth, but that of a king born of fire. The giants around us remained motionless, breathless, like statues of destiny, and I explained that they knew neither fatigue nor hunger nor mercy, and that their orders were clear: to protect the throne, to protect the one who held the sword, and to carry out the judgment without hesitation. I brought the sword closer to his hand, and when he touched it, he trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of it, the weight of power, the weight of the blood that had been shed for the covenant. I told him that the blood on it was not a sign of weakness, it was a price, and the price of the throne is always high, and that from this moment on, it was not just the young man who had been humiliated and trampled upon who was dead, but the guardian, the one who stood between the kingdom and chaos. I emphasized to him one last time that my brother wouldn't abandon the kingdom, that the coming war would be fiercer than anything he'd ever seen, and that when Sihara returned, she'd be broken and weary, needing someone to stand up to the whole world for her. I told him, if you weaken before her, the entire kingdom will weaken, but if you stand firm, even the giants themselves will bow down. He raised his head, looked at the throne, then at the giants, and finally at me with a look of unspoken promise. He said in a low but firm voice that the fear still lingered within him, but he would never run away again, and that he was ready to bear this burden even if it cost him his life. Only then did I feel I could leave the kingdom behind, because what I was searching for wasn't an army or giants. I was searching for a human being who had been broken and had chosen never to be broken again. For the last time, I told him that I would never allow anyone to take my daughter's place, and that he had to protect the throne until she returned, fulfilling his promise to me. Before I left, I bid him farewell one last time, and asked him not to let me down, because when I returned from my mission, I would show no mercy to anyone. I would crush them all. And indeed, a few days later, I destroyed my country and my entire army. I felt terrible pain throughout my body, and kept thinking about my daughter. I couldn't forget the bitter truth. I was no longer a normal human being, and at the same time, I wasn't immortal either. I could die like anyone else. Strangely, I could feel my daughter Sihara's fear, as if she were very close to me, her breath around me in the air. I was deeply saddened by every moment I wasted away from her, that I couldn't protect her from what she was going through now. I had walked right into hell without realizing it, and I remained oblivious for hours in the desert until the strange creature that had entered my life and completely destroyed it caught up with me. I told her that there was no power. You can't stop me from what I'm going to do, and I'll mess with anyone who gets in my way, and I won't care about anything, even if it's her. And of course, she's talking to me in her stupid way. Yabat explained to me how impulsive and nervous I am, and that I must think before I speak or act. She explained that I am no longer just an ordinary human being, and that I must consider the power that is inside me. She also explained to me that the place we are going to will have no use for my power, and that I must think carefully and make a plan before I move from my place.
She told me that forbidden lands are not opened so easily, and that I will suffer a lot to get there, and that there are many spirits living in the place who do not have any bodies and do not even feel hunger or thirst. If I enter in this way, the feather of life and power will come out of my body, and then they will finish me off without any thought, and I will not be able to take a single shot from them, and I will turn into just a speck that will be thrown to the ground. Of course, when I heard this, I became more nervous and afraid for my daughter, and I asked her, "So how should I act, and what exactly is required of me?" Because I definitely wouldn't leave my daughter in a situation like that alone and just stand there like that, because I was afraid for myself. I got angry at her, and my voice started to rise, and a big fight broke out between us. I was afraid that if I delayed any longer, my daughter would completely transform, and then it would be too late.
With its attributes and abbreviations forever, a state demands that I remain completely still and tells me that I must stop thinking like a human and start thinking exactly like the weak, and be like them since I have become one of them. It explained to me that in order to enter there, I must be able to expel the scent within me so that there is no trace of humanity, and then I will descend into safety. This means that I must transform completely and forget my human self forever and be completely free from my life and forget it entirely. It explained to me that this will happen to a house in their water, and then I will be completely purified and transformed and be exactly like them. She started trying to convince me that she would take me to her place, or I would forget my daughter forever and accept the situation. She kept me going, telling me to think it over and make a decision. When I realized she might be playing with her, I calmed her down and told her that if I ever discovered it was a game or a trap, I would take my time and nothing would matter to me, and I wouldn't be afraid of anyone. Strangely, she spoke calmly and without any fear, and asked me to follow her so we wouldn't get lost any longer. At the same time, my brother was taking my daughter and dropping her off at the gate.
The horse reaches the other world and prepares to descend there. He's very surprised that there are no guards at the gate or any signs around it. This makes him even more afraid and feel like he's done something wrong for the first time. Strangely, the horse is the first to realize he's in danger and starts acting strangely, moving around like a madman, as if he sees something they can't. He gets very tired, foams at the mouth, and tries to get away from the gate by any means. Unfortunately, my brother keeps pushing him, yelling at him, ordering him to continue on his way. He sees him as a cowardly animal and says he needs to be braver and face his fate. The horse continues to act this way until Sihara falls to the ground. My brother tries to control himself at the last moment before he falls after her. Sihara is in a lot of pain and keeps crying. Of course, her hands and feet are crushed, and my brother doesn't care at all. He doesn't even try to help her. Strangely, a few minutes later, he starts to feel pain too. His knee buckles, and he keeps screaming loudly, not understanding what he's asking exactly, as if he's the one who fell to the ground and got up.
He was knocked down and felt everything she felt, indicating that he had tied his life to his daughter's. This was the result of the agreement he made with the threads, intending to use them as a shield. He was using them to expose her in a place like this, unaware that things would escalate to this point. He was confronted with the bitter truth, and unfortunately, it was too late. He began to bleed profusely, realizing that if she suffered, he would suffer too. If she was injured, he would be injured and suffer just like her. Of course, he tried to protect himself in every way possible, his voice filled with gasps. He ordered her to get back on her feet as quickly as possible and told her to take good care of herself because he didn't want to be harmed because of her. He kept threatening her. After a few minutes, the horse became very tired and collapsed to the ground, eventually dying. This was because he had wanted to escape by any means and was determined not to enter through that terrifying gate. It was very strange that the guardians were still involved and her uncle was still trying and risking their lives. She's certain that nothing down there will save them and that this will be the end for both of them. Of course, her uncle arrives, determined in his opinion, and orders her around.
He kept walking behind him, and they both remained silent for a long time before continuing on their way. Meanwhile, I had reached the water that would change my entire life. I went into the pool to bathe and performed all the required rituals. I found myself surrounded by snake women who were performing very strange rituals on me. Immediately afterward, they began to approach me in a terrifying way. Their eyes glowed in the darkness, all yellow, and they smiled strangely. They stood watching me transform, as if they had been waiting for this moment for a long time. A minute later, I went back into the water, and my whole body began to transform. I felt it unraveling, and my human skin began to peel off. I started to change to a completely different, strange color, and my eyes also began to glow like theirs. Even my teeth became like those of monsters, and my appearance became very hideous. I began to see my whole body covered in yellow and green scales that were exactly like iron and very hard. A reptilian-like back appeared, long and strong, and it kept striking. The water was all around me in every direction, but my claws disappeared and huge black talons appeared in their place. I felt my bones stretching and growing all over my body, and my spine was also transforming and appearing with.
My bones are expanding and growing throughout my body, and my spine is also transforming and emerging outside my body in a very strange way. I also developed huge, very strong muscles. As soon as I got out of the water, I was completely transformed. Of course, they were all standing there, bewildered by this new form and very impressed by me. I found the Queen of the Water standing there, waiting for me, very happy, and she kept looking at me in amazement. I started to hear strange sounds coming from them, and of course, at first I was a little scared because this was something new to me. After a few minutes, I got used to the new situation, and the Queen began to explain to me that my whole life had changed from this moment on, and nothing would ever go back to the way it was before. She told me that I had to forget my old behavior and adapt to the person I had become now, and use my power in a healthy way so that I could reach my goals with ease. She insisted that before I started my war, we sit and talk calmly and think about how we would protect ourselves. She promised me that she would stay with me until the end. Meanwhile, my warm body is settled on my throne and doing everything. He agrees with me on this and tries to protect the kingdom as much as possible from the surrounding enemies.
He takes the throne for himself, promising to protect it until its rightful owner returns. He vows to never go back, no matter what, and asks them to leave quietly, explaining that he doesn't want to cause trouble or desecrate the place his master is away. Naturally, they don't like this and become even more enraged. They attack him, striking him with their swords. Unfortunately, he falls to the ground and tries to dodge the second blow, desperately trying to save his life. His body weakens from the repeated blows and he's disoriented. He struggles to his last breath, but they continue to strike him for a long time until he collapses again, his legs pounding violently. Despite all this, he exerts tremendous effort, determined to get back on his feet. He doesn't give up easily. He overhears one of them threatening him with death, saying he will sever his head from his body so that when the queen arrives, they can personally deliver it to her. And indeed, one of them raises his sword. He is holding it and preparing to kill it, but due to extreme weakness, he freezes in place and cannot even defend himself. Since he has no other option, he grips the stone with all his might and presses down on it.
He keeps screaming from the intense anger and exhaustion he feels. His screams cause the ground to shake around them, and something very strange happens throughout the entire place. They are also affected and begin to react, but none of them understand what is happening. Since the giants cannot hear, all they understand is that they feel my blood and my pen. The moment he presses down on the stone with all his might, they feel as if I am there, and they move from their places at that very moment, preparing for war. This is a huge shock for the enemies, because they did not expect anything like this. They find themselves in a very difficult situation, surrounded from all sides. Indeed, the giants begin to finish them off one by one, easily eliminating them and throwing them from the highest point of the tower as a warning to anyone who tries or even thinks of stealing the kingdom. They embody their bodies everywhere to the point that they destroy the walls of the castle. The scene is very terrifying for anyone present, and the war between them continues for a long time until they get rid of them all and make sure there are no enemies left in the area.
He was very happy. He stood atop the castle and began speaking loudly so everyone could hear. He declared that this kingdom belonged to the queen and that she alone would sit on the throne. He said they all had to wait for her because he wouldn't allow anyone else to take her place, no matter the cost. Meanwhile, my brother took my daughter and descended underground for great distances, passing through completely strange passages. Of course, they walked with extreme caution, trying to protect her from anything that might harm her, because in doing so, he was protecting himself. He was terrified that she might die, or that anything might happen to her, because he would die with her at the same moment. They reached very strange and dangerous places, exactly like the ambush. They were both afraid and didn't know what awaited them next. They began to hear strange sounds around them, and they were both terrified. Neither of them knew the source of the sound or understood what was happening. They were forced to continue on their way, hearing strange sounds all around them, but they remained silent since there was no turning back. And Sarah begins to get very tired and affected by the great effort she made, and she goes down with me on a rocky staircase and sees a very terrifying scene and tries to forget herself. Thank you.
She tries her best to keep going, but her body starts trembling from fear and exhaustion, and her lips turn blue. A few minutes later, my brother experiences the same thing. He too is trembling, his body is freezing, and his lips are turning blue.
He has to act quickly and hide her to avoid killing them both. He has to play with his abaya so she can wear it, and he stays by her side until she recovers and can stand again. Of course, he does all this to protect himself, not because he feels sorry for her. He argues with her and asks her one last time to take care of herself and be careful because he doesn't want to die right now. Sahara is terrified of him and tries to do exactly as he says so she can obey him. He continues on their way and they remain awake for long hours. The air is very dark and strangely overcast. Suddenly, they find themselves in an abyss with no end in sight, and they sense something moving around them and eyes illuminating. In the darkness, they are both terrified and keep searching everywhere around them like madmen out of sheer fear. After a few minutes, a creature appears that looks like...
It's terrifying to describe the darkness. It has claws and follows them relentlessly, chasing them from place to place. Unfortunately, it's not just one creature. Many of the same kind appear. Their eyes all glow in the dark, and they behave terrifyingly, filling the entire area. The worst part is that they can't see at all and rely solely on their sense of smell for hunting. They can smell human blood from great distances and can even detect the scent of fear. They move from place to place just like spiders, waiting for the right moment to attack both of them. Everything is going perfectly until my brother accidentally trips and steps on another rock. He wakes up from the top of the cliff and doesn't know what to do. Overwhelmed with embarrassment, he doesn't even know how to ask Sahara for help, not expecting anything from her, just like Bay. But to his shock, she actually reaches out and saves his life. All he did was take it, and she actually managed to save him after a great effort. He collapses to the ground from fear and exhaustion, then falls asleep for a while, and she sits awake next to him watching him, laughing heartily.
At this moment, she feels that she needs to move around them and ask him to prefer Hadi, and unfortunately, he does not hear her words, and he prefers to suffocate with her as usual. Suddenly, and asking him to shut up, really, because their lives are the two of them and they are dangerous, and they say that they called the smell of fear in them, and they reached their place, and so they would save them in seconds, and my brother was very nervous when he heard this. And he tries to hold on to as much as he can and prefers to look around him like a madman, and he doesn't understand what she is talking about exactly, until one of these creatures appears in front of him from the midst of the fog, and his shape is very terrifying, and his eyes are bright in shape. He will be very terrifying, and his eyes are bright and his eyes are empty, and he knows that this creature does not see and prefers my brother standing in his place and is unable to move from so much fear that he keeps himself secretly and tries not to make any movement so that he does not see any movement. Why is this creature? And at the same time, the flower rests on the rock next to it, muffles itself, closes its eyes, and tries to remain calm as much as it can.
Imagine them, the two of them, surrounded on all sides by hundreds of creatures waiting for the right moment to finish them off. They knew they had to pass this test by any means necessary to reach the next stage and ultimately achieve their goal. Meanwhile, I remained in the queen's position for a long time, completely bewildered by my new appearance and state. I pushed away anything I touched with a spit, and I stood in front of the mirror for hours trying to get used to my new form. Strangely, the queen remained calm and observant, watching me with apparent satisfaction without reacting to my actions. I was amazed by my newfound strength and the massive muscles throughout my body. My eyes were completely transformed. I looked terrifying. The queen began to speak to me, trying to calm me down and ask me to sit down so we could have a drink together and discuss what we would do next. Of course, all I could think about was my new form. I couldn't focus on anything else, and I understood that in order to save my daughter, I had to make a sacrifice like this and forget my humanity and my old life. If I could save my daughter, I have to make a sacrifice like this and forget my humanity and my old life. Even if I manage to save my daughter and kill my brother, I don't know how I can live with her again in this new way. She won't recognize me and will be afraid of me forever because I'll just be a nightmare to her. She'll attack everything in sight. I was trying to release the anger inside me in any way possible and accept the idea and the new life I was entering. During this time, the queen maintained the distance between us and tried to calm me from afar. She could sense the violence inside me and knew exactly what I was thinking, that I was afraid of this new form and afraid of forgetting everything I had known before and even forgetting that I had ever been human. I was thinking about how I would face my daughter in this state, because she certainly wouldn't recognize me and might die of fright the moment she saw me, before I could even speak to her and tell her that I had come to save her. I asked her to give me a shield so I could cover myself and hide my new body. so that the shock wouldn't be too great for my daughter, and so that I could protect her and get her out of this situation. At that moment, the queen began to remind me of everything that had happened. She told me that I could hide my body, but I couldn't hide everything my brother had done, and that he was the one who had tried to unleash the monster on me even before I entered the dead.
Oh God, he condemned my life to death and destroyed everything I shared. At this age, I must take revenge on him and get my rights by any means necessary. I remembered everything that had happened and kept pressing the shield with all my might out of anger. I went back in time many years, to the day my brother and I were born, each of us with a different mother. Although he was the servant's son, my father acknowledged me and treated me very well in front of everyone. He even told me he was my brother and didn't hide this fact. We used to play together in the palace all the time, and we have many wonderful memories together. Unfortunately, one day I accidentally kicked him in the eye, and since then he has never been able to forgive me. I have hated that day for the rest of my life. When I finally settled in a suitable place, my father gave me the throne since I am the legitimate son. Unfortunately, my brother took a very low position and always acted in a bad way, keeping me in this situation for many years until my father died. Because I loved my brother very much and was attached to him, I wanted to make it up to him in any way possible, so I decided to appoint him as my leader.
My father died, and because I loved my brother so much and was very attached to him, I wanted to make up for it in any way possible. So I decided to appoint him as my leader so he could stay by my side all the time, help me, and feel like he was part of the family. Unfortunately, I never expected that a slave could harm me or that he hated me to this extent. While I extended my hand to him and tried to help him, he was plotting behind my back and scheming to get rid of me forever. All he thought about was taking my place, no matter the cost. Sadly, he started to eliminate my entire family and destroy them completely. He even seized the throne against my will. And he wasn't satisfied with that. He decided to hurt me even more. He dragged me to hell and stripped me of my humanity forever, leaving me alone. We fought a long war for a long time, each of us trying to eliminate the other in any way possible. The entire kingdom was destroyed because of us. We returned to the same moment when I put on the armor and took out my long block cloak, which the queen used to cover the rest of my body, so that I felt more reassured, and she explained to me that my daughter would see me as just a hero and that it was impossible for her to be afraid of me in that way. When I felt ready, I gathered everything I needed and prepared.
I performed the ritual to begin my journey to avenge myself on my brother and rescue my daughter from his clutches. I left with the queen, and she managed to take me by way of a shortcut beneath her kingdom. We walked through a very narrow passage, filled with stones everywhere, and emanating a strange smell like sulfur and salt. After a while, a huge plume of smoke appeared before us, and the sound of water echoed everywhere. There was a monster breathing underwater. We continued walking until we reached a very deep pit, like a black hole, located at the center of the earth. I knew that whoever descended from there could never return the same, and that this pit was essentially endless. The queen explained that it was a very ancient volcanic pool called the veins of the earth, which connect the entire world. It was what connected her kingdom to an unknown lake, about which no one but their world knew anything. I descended a little further and kept looking inside the pit, hoping to see something from where I stood. I was shocked to see that the water was also black and moving at a great speed. Circles and their shape are very scary, and the owner began to explain to me that any human being is Hino.
I said, "From here, my body will atrophy and disintegrate in seconds, and that's why no one can pass through here." I understood why she was so determined to transform me completely before we arrived. She was worried about me and wanted me to be stronger and able to face the situation. She said the pressure down below was extremely high and my lungs could burst in seconds, but in my current state, I could endure anything humans couldn't. She told me it would be a little difficult, but certainly not harder than being a normal human. The queen emphasized that I had to get through here safely because I was already too late and my daughter was definitely in danger. I had to reach her in time, otherwise all my efforts would be wasted. She kept encouraging me, urging me to see my way to the end and reach my goal, whatever the cost, or I would die easily. Because I didn't want to waste any more time, without thinking, I made a final decision. I had to go down and face the consequences because I couldn't leave my daughter in such a situation without help. I tried until I saved her, and I preferred to pray that my brother hadn't reached his goal and that I would reach them in time.
The right moment arrived, and I remembered that I was entering a war I knew nothing about. I decided to ask the queen, since she had experience with such matters, how I would be pleased if I tried to kill the monster and separate its head from its body, because it could easily come back to life, and then everything I had done would be pointless. I tried to find a specific way to get rid of it, and at that moment, she smiled strangely, approached me, and spoke in my ear in a terrifying way. She told me that this was no ordinary war, and that it was very good that I was clever enough to ask such a question before she left. She began giving me some tips, and told me to follow them if you truly wanted to get rid of it and win the war. She told me that it wasn't just a creature I could easily eliminate, and that I would have some trouble with it. She told me about its only weakness, the one through which I could get rid of it forever. After she finished speaking, I adjusted my cloak again and prepared to continue my journey. I jumped into the water without thinking, and suddenly I found myself in the middle of the plain, moving from I went to the other place, and the water pulled me in against my will, and I entered strange tunnels. I stayed in that water for a long time, and then I went to work.
I was feeling very strange until I reached the depths. I couldn't see or breathe properly anymore, and I was walking very fast, not understanding how any of this was happening. The only thing on my mind was reaching my daughter and brother as quickly as possible, even if they were also in the depths of hell. Although I was afraid of this speed, I was also very happy with it, believing it would easily get me to my goal. After a while, I found myself in a lake surrounded by strange black skin. Fog filled the place, and I couldn't see anything in front of me. No walls, no buildings, only endless emptiness. While I was trying to reach them, the two of them continued on their path, reaching the end of the road and finding themselves also in the black ice. My brother was trying to keep my daughter tied to him by force so as not to harm her or himself. He was very afraid for himself the whole time, acting calmly and thinking about everything. It's a step he takes, and of course, deep down, he's terrified of everyone around him, trying to hide his fear as much as he can. Then, the two of them find each other.
They are both terrified of these strange creatures, and he tries to reach them by any means. Their hunger is very evident, and my daughter is terrified. She is forced to stay with her uncle since she doesn't know how to spread out her blanket. Of course, he's trying to protect her and doesn't want any of them to reach her, because if she dies, he will die at the same moment and all his efforts will be for nothing. So he takes her and tries to continue on his way. Suddenly, he trips and falls to the ground, making a very loud noise that attracts the monsters. Meanwhile, the snake is very tired and unable to move, remaining standing in place for a long time. They both escape from the monsters with great difficulty and reach the person he came for. Strangely, he is thrown to the ground and keeps screaming loudly, saying that he was tricked and that instead of trying to help the snake, this was not what they agreed upon. He also agreed to build them a whole army that could protect them at all times, but none of that happened. He broke the agreement between them and was speaking while he was very angry, trying to find a solution to the situation he was in.
When the rage intensifies, something huge happens in the valley beneath them. A very high fog appears above them, and the whole world begins to spin in a very strange way. My brother tries to sever the bond between himself and my daughter because it's a huge problem for him, and he wants to get rid of her by any means. He sees her as his only weakness and asks the being he's speaking to give him immense power so that no one can stand against him. As soon as my daughter hears this, she starts crying, knowing that this is the end and that he will kill her at any moment. A minute later, the creature he's speaking to appears. It's enormous, with long horns and terrifyingly gigantic. As soon as my daughter sees it, she falls to the ground in fear and terror. A terrifying yellow light emanates from its eyes. Even my brother is scared and lies on the ground, unable to look up, until the being begins to speak to them in a loud voice, declaring to my brother that he brought this upon himself and that he is the one. He's determined to connect his life to the lives of others, and his work is exactly what he asked for, and he's getting closer to my brother.
The guard, a lone sparrow, approaches my brother, places his hand on his head, and prepares to do something specific. My brother is overjoyed, thinking he will grant the power the monster requests. He becomes incredibly excited about what will happen next and asks the monster to completely transform him, making him stronger than anyone can imagine. Strangely, the monster has a completely different plan. He wants to enslave my brother and hold him at his mercy forever. The monster approaches him and begins performing strange rituals on him, inserting a black substance into his body and throwing him into black water. At the same time, my brother begins to writhe and scream from the intense pain he feels, as if it is multiplying throughout his body. The bond between him and my daughter intensifies, and the hyena is greatly affected. She also collapses to the ground, experiencing something strange as a result of the monster's actions.
She feels something enveloping her blood and screams from the excruciating pain. Suddenly, she stops making any sound and becomes completely immobile. At that moment, the lake exploded before their eyes, releasing a huge amount of black water. I appeared with it, and I was full. Anger and fear for my daughter overwhelmed me. I desperately wanted to reach her and make sure she was all right. I was shocked to see this strange creature holding my brother and doing something bizarre to him. At the same time, my daughter lay on the ground, writhing in agony, unable to stand or move. I tried to think calmly and figure out how to act so I wouldn't lose my daughter forever. I saw her dying before my eyes and wanted to save her before it was too late. I also saw my brother transform into a monster. I gathered all my strength and stood before this strange being, ready for the battle that was about to ensue. I could hear a terrifying sound coming from it, as if it was trying to scare me. At that moment, I remembered everything she had said and decided to follow all the advice she had given me so I could deal with it and win this battle. I remembered that its horns were its only weakness. They were what bound its soul to this body. If I could reach them, I could easily get rid of it. So I thought, how can I reach those horns? Destroy her and help her get rid of his spirit forever, and all this destruction will end with him, and I will be able to save my daughter from his hands. And in a moment, I started to move from my place.
I went towards the creature without any fear, and at the same time, my brother was thrown to the ground, preparing to attack me. But I didn't give him a chance. I reached the mud just in time, grabbed my leg, and moved very quickly, giving him no chance to defend himself. I climbed up quickly until I reached his horns and began striking him all over his body, trying to weaken him in any way possible. I finally grabbed the right horn and tried to break it. It took a great deal of effort because it was strong and difficult to break easily. After a while, I succeeded, and the horn fell to the ground with a very loud sound that echoed everywhere around us. Of course, he also started to feel the effects, and his body was shaking strangely from exhaustion. He couldn't control himself, but he could see clearly in front of him. At that moment, I wanted to continue before he regained consciousness and tried to recover, so I jumped on him quickly and reached the second horn. Unfortunately, before I could destroy it, the monster started attacking me from all directions, and I defended myself in any way I could and endured so much until I finally reached my goal and was able to. Finally, I destroyed the second Arna, and at that moment, the monster collapsed to the ground from exhaustion. A few minutes later, it vanished completely into the darkness, leaving no trace. I was, of course, very tired after everything that had happened, and I collapsed to the ground for a while. I tried to reach my daughter by any means possible to make sure she was still alive. I was shocked to find her lying on the ground, completely motionless. I sadly thought she might be dead, and I tried to approach her calmly and try to wake her up. I couldn't accept that idea at all, and I was ready to do anything to bring her back to life. I kept trying to get her to wake up, and indeed, after a few minutes, she started breathing again. I was very surprised at how this had happened. Her whole body was trembling from exhaustion and fatigue. As soon as she woke up and lowered her eyes, she found me sitting in front of her. Of course, she was terrified of me and tried to get away from me in any way possible, screaming and asking me to hurt her. Then, after a moment, she focused more on my features and discovered the end result is that I remain her father, and she doesn't understand what happened to me or how, and she starts to feel reassured.
I was with her, and she threw herself into my arms, asking how I got there. She was overjoyed to learn the monster was dead. Before I could tell her what happened, or even reassure each other, or fully grasp what had transpired, we discovered my brother still wanted to fight. He had completely transformed into a monster, his appearance monstrous and terrifying, possessing incredible strength and muscles. At that moment, I knew I was entering a massive battle, unsure who would ultimately prevail. His body was drastically altered because the transformation wasn't complete, turning him into a bizarre creature with black veins, stone-like skin, and a soulless, endless rage emanating from within. He was like a giant, ready to annihilate anyone who stood in his way. Even after his demise, he left behind a great calamity, and I didn't know how to get rid of my brother. I was terrified for my daughter and didn't want to scare her a second time. I kept wondering how to protect her. I also knew what kind of weakness I had since he didn't feel anything at all, and he started making very scary noises, making noises everywhere, and he would get closer to me and threaten me and stuff.
The only thing that reassured me was that the bond between him and my daughter had disappeared, and that she was now safe far away from him. I was forced to enter this war with him to see who would finish the other off. My brother started to gather around us and attack me with all his might, hitting me. In response, I tried to defend myself in any way I could, blocking his blows. I tried to release the anger inside me by throwing a long gun at him because of the harm he had done to me and my family, and all the terrible things he had done to me. I remembered my wife and children whom he had killed, and I tried to take revenge on him in every way possible. I was so consumed by rage that he didn't even have a chance to defend himself. He was thrown far away by the force of my blows, and I started throwing him from place to place. The fight was very fierce. When I was sure he had lost all his strength, I threw him far away, and he landed on his side. I tried to calm down and catch my breath, and I started to check on my daughter and make sure that everything was over. Before I took her and left, I started hearing strange noises around me, near the lake, and I knew that there was...
Ghalib needed something, and that's when the shock hit me. I discovered a huge number of monsters all around us, their eyes glowing in the darkness. They were watching everything that was happening, seeing their leader die right before their eyes, and sensing everything that was going on. I was forced into a new battle, killing them one by one. I tried to protect my daughter at all costs, not letting anyone near her. After a tremendous effort, I carried her on my back and climbed onto some rocks. I didn't want to look back because of the horrific sight. I was trying to get her out of there by any means necessary. I could hear their voices everywhere, and all I could think about was my daughter. I knew I had to be very careful with every step I took, because she could easily fall, and I'd lose everything forever. Even though I was exhausted and couldn't take it anymore, I pushed myself to get her to the top. After a very long time and a great deal of effort, we finally reached the surface and found an empty space all around me. The atmosphere was completely gray, and without resting, I took it and continued on my way. I wanted to reach safety, and I kept running for a long hour until I arrived at... She cut me off and refused to let me near her. I just stared at her for a while in silence, then asked her to go inside and leave me alone. I told her that this was no longer my place and that I had to return to the place where I would live the rest of my life. Of course, she was taken aback by my words and reminded me that I was the king and had to return to my kingdom. So I had to explain to her then. I told her that I had to sell myself to save her from death and stand against the monsters. If I didn't, she would come with a whole army, and unfortunately, she would open the gates of hell on the entire kingdom, and no one would be able to stand in her way again. Zara looked very affectionate towards me, understanding the sacrifice I had made for her. She came closer and tried to summon me one last time, but unfortunately I refused and stopped her, because I knew that something like that could weaken me and make me go back on my word and be unable to leave. I asked her. She needs to be strong and capable of running the kingdom herself, and I thought she would be a very great queen.
People will love her because she's kind and has a big heart. At that moment, my entire army gathered because they had sensed me from the moment I arrived. They knew very well that I was coming and could sense everything I was thinking. I asked them one last time to remain silent, each going his own way and disappearing into the heart of the desert and sand, not to return unless the queen called them. They obeyed me and moved so fast that the ground shook violently beneath them. They moved away, burying themselves in the sand and disappearing completely. This was because the city no longer needed monsters. A new era would begin without any problems. And then, forever, my kingdom would belong to me and my daughter. I prepared for the new life I was about to embark on. I could hear her voice calling to me, but unfortunately I didn't want to keep her attached any longer. I continued on my way calmly until the gate opened and a girl emerged, ran to her, sat down in front of her and welcomed her. He was very pleased with her and happy that the queen had arrived.
Finally, she will sit on the throne of the kingdom, and he will fulfill his promise to her father, just as he agreed with her. Strangely, she treats her very kindly and asks him not to be formal with her because she is just like him. At that moment, he recognizes her love the moment he describes her eyes. He is ready to do anything for her, and he gives her his father, promising never to leave her no matter what, to stay by her side and help her. He takes her and enters the castle gate, preparing them both for the future they will create for themselves. At the same time, I was returning on my way and entered the dark tunnels, wanting to reach the kingdom in time since the queen was waiting for me. I walked calmly after accepting reality and knowing that this was my new home and the life I would live forever. Of course, my body was very tired after everything that had happened to me, and I wanted to rest in any way possible after making sure my daughter was safe. Although I could have tried to escape, deceive her, and play with her, I refused to do so, and I decided to act according to my morals and the same agreement we had, and go back to her again. And I sacrificed my life on the roof and went down.
To live in darkness amidst the women and children, I had to pay the price for the agreement made with them. I kept walking until I reached the queen's chamber. I found her sitting there waiting for me, smiling. She was overjoyed that I had finally returned. Of course, all her people were standing waiting for me, looking at me with respect, admiration, and love all at once. Strangely, the queen stood there, clearly eager to see me. It was evident that she had been waiting for me for a long time, afraid that I had returned. Her eyes were shining with joy, and she welcomed me warmly. She told me that the scent of victory permeated my entire being, as well as the scent of death. She asked me exactly what I had done on the journey, and of course, I began to tell her everything in detail. She was very happy that I had been able to save my daughter from death. What pleased her most was that the agreement between us was still valid, and that she had finally been able to help me save my daughter. This meant that I would continue to live with them indefinitely. She explained to me that my present was linked to, I was in their presence and couldn't stay away from them anymore. She pointed to my new spot and had made me a chair out of block stone right next to hers.
She told me that this throne had been waiting for me for many years and that I was the right person for this place. Since it was my choice and no one forced me into anything, she didn't assign any guards to me or tie me down. She let me act as I pleased. In the end, I was forced to sit on this chair willingly and take over the throne. We decided to be king and queen and get married in front of all her people. Of course, they were all happy about something like this and were very pleased with us and felt safe. I knew that my name would soon be forgotten up there, and with the years, no one would remember me again. They would remember that I died in the desert and my city had disappeared too. I knew that this was the right decision because I didn't want to cause any more problems for my daughter or put her life in danger. I decided to let my daughter rule the country and not intervene except at the right time when I felt that someone might challenge her. At that time, the queen would start speaking loudly and the echo would be present throughout the place. She would see that people always harbor envy and hatred for each other, and that there were many people. She absolutely cannot control these emotions, and the queen keeps pursuing her until she gains control. In the end, she transforms into a monster, and she tries to teach me a few lessons so I can live peacefully with them. I understood that there are indeed people who are impossible to change, and that the secret remains within them no matter what. And here's where the events of our story today begin. Follow me for more videos and summaries. Peace.